Commander stood on the observation deck of station and watched death approach. 200 warships flickered into existence at the edge of the system, their hulls reflecting the distant starlight like scales on some massive serpent. She had known they were coming. Intelligence had given her 3 days' warning, 3 days to prepare for the impossible. "Ma'am, they're holding position at the jump point." Lieutenant's voice cracked slightly. He was young, fresh out of the academy. This was supposed to be a quiet posting. Mining stations didn't see combat. They were too far from everything that mattered. "Didn't look away from the viewport. How long until they reach us?" "At current speed, 6 hours. But ma'am, they could be here in 30 minutes if they wanted." "They're making us wait, letting us think about it." Turned from the window and faced her bridge crew. 12 people, most of them barely into their 20s. Behind them, through the station's corridors, 8,000 souls went about their duties. Miners, scientists, engineers, families. They had come here to build humanity's future, not to die in its first interstellar war. The Dominion had appeared in human space 6 months ago. First contact protocols had failed within minutes. They didn't negotiate. They conquered. 17 civilizations had fallen before them in their march across the Orion Arm. 17 different species that had bent the knee or been erased. Now it was humanity's turn. Earth had mobilized its defense fleets, but they were scattered across a dozen systems. Station was alone, 3 weeks from the nearest help. They knew it. Everyone knew it. "What are our assets?" asked, though she had memorized the numbers days ago. Pulled up the tactical display. 12 patrol frigates, Class II shields, standard plasma batteries. The station itself has mining lasers, but they're not designed for combat. We have 800 security personnel with small arms. The rest are civilians. Studied the hologram. 12 frigates against 200 warships. The vessels were larger, faster, and carried weapons that could crack a planet's crust. Military analysts had run the simulation 100 times. Station would fall in under an hour. The only variable was how many minutes it would take. "Recommendations." She looked around the bridge. Silence. Finally spoke. Admiral Torres sent evacuation orders. "We're supposed to load civilians onto every available ship and run. And leave the station intact for them. Give them a forward base in human space." Shook her head. "Besides, we don't have enough ships. We'd have to leave 4,000 people behind." "Ma'am, staying means everyone dies." "Maybe." Walked to her command chair and sat down. "Or maybe we show them why they should have left us alone. Send a message to all department heads. Conference room in 30 minutes. And pull up every schematic we have for the station systems. All of them." The meeting was short. Laid out protocol, a battle plan that military theorists had created as an intellectual exercise. No one had ever expected it to be used. It required things that no sane commander would order. "The mining lasers can be," she explained, pointing to the hologram of the station. "They're designed to cut through asteroids. That means they can cut through ship hulls if we can get them in range." "They'll never get in range," Commander Park from engineering interrupted. "Those lasers are fixed installations. They can stay outside their effective distance and pound us from orbit. Unless we make them come to us." Manipulated the display. "We vent the atmospheric processors here, and here. Create clouds of volatile gases around the station. Force them to navigate through it carefully." "That'll kill everyone in those sections," Park said quietly. "I know. We evacuate them first. Anyone who can't fight gets moved to the core sections." Didn't let herself think about what she was saying. If she stopped to feel it, she wouldn't be able to continue. "We strip the reactor safeties. Run them hot enough to make the sensors scream warnings. Make them think we're crazy enough to detonate everything." "We are crazy enough," Lieutenant from Tactical said. "Aren't we, ma'am?" Met his eyes. "If it comes to that, yes. But that's not the plan. The plan is to make them bleed, make them pay for every meter, make them remember that humans don't die quietly." She continued laying out the strategy. Sacrifice positions to create kill zones. Use damaged frigates as improvised weapons. Hide gun platforms in debris fields. Every dirty trick, every desperate gambit that human military history had ever conceived. It was a plan built on the assumption that everyone involved would die, but would die making the enemy regret ever coming here. "What about the civilians?" someone asked. "Those who can fight will. Those who can't, we put them on the cargo haulers and send them toward the outer system. Maybe they will let them go, maybe not, but we give them a chance." Stood. "I won't order anyone to stay. Anyone who wants to leave on those ships can go. No judgment, no consequences. This is going to be bad and I won't pretend otherwise." No one moved. "Ma'am," said, respectfully, "shut up. We're not going anywhere." Felt something break in her chest, but she kept her face steady. "Then we have 6 hours. Let's get to work." The station transformed. Mining equipment was hastily converted into weapons. Explosives were placed in strategic corridors, ready to be triggered. Cargo containers were filled with anything that would burn or explode and positioned near the station's exterior. The 12 frigates were loaded with every missile they could carry, plus a few that weren't designed for their launch systems but would probably work anyway. Walked through the corridors as her people prepared for war. She saw engineers welding armor plates to interior walls, medical staff setting up triage centers that everyone knew wouldn't be enough, families saying goodbye, just in case. A group of miners had volunteered to pilot the civilian shuttles in suicide runs if it came to that. They were practicing approach vectors, faces grim with determination. In the cargo bay, she found her chief engineer, Commander Park, overseeing the installation of reactor cores into gutted freighters. "Flying bombs," Park explained. "If we can get them close enough, we can crack their capital ships." "Who's going to pilot them?" "Volunteers, we have more than we need." Park didn't look at her. "Ma'am, we're all going to die, aren't we?" "Probably." "Then why are we doing this? Why not just surrender?" Was quiet for a moment. "Because 17 civilizations bent the knee and they are still coming. Because if we surrender, every human system becomes a target. Because someone has to show them that we won't go quietly." She put her hand on Park's shoulder. "And because if we're going to die anyway, we might as well make it mean something." The fleet began moving exactly 6 hours after they arrived. They came slowly, confidently, in perfect formation. Warclaw, their commander, broadcast a message as they approached. His face filled every screen on the station. He was massive, easily 8 feet tall, with gray-scaled skin and eyes like molten copper. Rows of bone spikes ran down his skull and spine. His voice was a deep rumble that the translation software struggled to render. "Humans of station, I am Warclaw of the Dominion. You have one opportunity to surrender. Submit now, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and I will turn this station into a monument to your foolishness. You have until we reach weapons range to decide. This is the mercy we show to all who face the Dominion." Walked to the communications station. Around her, the bridge crew waited. In every corner of the station, 8,000 people watched to see what their commander would say. She opened the channel. "Warclaw, this is Commander of Station. I have heard your terms, I have considered them carefully." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "Come and take it." She cut the transmission. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the fleet accelerated, their formation tightening as they prepared for battle. Weapons powered up, visible even at this distance as their ships began to glow with lethal energy. Sat in her command chair and gripped the armrests. "All hands to battle stations. Activate protocol. And somebody get me a damage report the second they start shooting, because we're going to need to know what we're working with." The bridge crew moved to their positions. Through the viewports, the fleet grew larger, blotting out the stars. "Ma'am," said quietly, "it's been an honor." "We're not dead yet, Lieutenant. Let's see how many of them we can take with us when we go." The first plasma bolt struck station 17 minutes later, and the impossible battle began. The station's shields lit up like a small sun as plasma fire hammered into them. Watched the energy readings spike and fall, each impact draining their defensive systems faster than she had hoped. "Shields at 70%, called out. "They're concentrating fire on the northern quadrant." "Good, let them," brought up the tactical display. The fleet had split into 3 groups exactly as she had predicted. They were arrogant. They had never lost before, never even been seriously challenged. Why would they change their tactics now? "Frigate Group Alpha, move to position. Make them think you're trying to flank." She watched as her 12 ships broke from their defensive positions around the station. They were outmatched, and everyone on those boats knew it. But they moved into formation like they were the ones with the advantage. They took the bait. 20 warships peeled off to intercept the frigates, their massive hulls accelerating with terrifying speed, counted down in her head. 3, 2, 1. "Light them up." The mining lasers fired. 3 massive beams of coherent light, designed to slice through solid rock, lanced out from the station. They had dismissed them as irrelevant. Mining equipment couldn't hurt warships. Except at full power at close range, they absolutely could. 2 vessels simply ceased to exist, cut in half by beams that never should have been used as weapons. The 3rd ship lost its forward section and tumbled away, venting atmosphere and bodies. "Direct hits, but the lasers are overheating," Park's voice came through the comm. "We can't maintain this rate of fire." "We don't need to, we just needed to get their attention." Watched as the fleet's formation wavered. They were reassessing, realizing that maybe this wouldn't be as easy as they thought. "Vent the processors, now." Klaxons blared throughout the station as massive clouds of volatile gases erupted from the atmospheric systems. They billowed out into space, creating a hazy sphere around station. It wouldn't stop them, but it would make them cautious. Ships moving too fast through that cloud would ignite it, and while the explosions wouldn't destroy their vessels, it would damage sensors and shields. The fleet slowed its advance. "They're adapting," said, changing formation to a dispersed assault pattern. "How long until they're in optimal firing range?" 4 minutes. Nodded. 4 minutes until the real battle began. 4 minutes until they brought their full firepower to bear. She looked at, "How are the evacuations going?" "Last civilian transport just cleared the outer marker. They're running dark, heading for the asteroid field like you ordered." "Good, at least some of them might make it." She switched to station-wide comms. "All personnel, they are coming in hot. You know your positions, you know your jobs, make every shot count, make them remember us. Out." The bombardment began in earnest. Plasma bolts and particle beams tore through space, slamming into the station's shields with devastating force. The lights on the bridge flickered as power systems struggled to compensate. "Shields at 40%, 35-30. Reroute auxiliary power. Shut down everything non-essential." The station shuddered. Somewhere in the distance heard an explosion. One of the outer sections had been breached. "Frigate Group Alpha is engaging," reported. "They're ramming." Watched as 2 of her frigates, shields collapsed and weapons depleted, turned their prows toward the nearest capital ship and accelerated at maximum burn. They tried to evade, but they were too slow, too confident that nothing would be crazy enough to attempt a suicide run. The first frigate struck the ship amidships, its reactor detonating on impact. The explosion tore through both vessels, leaving only debris. The second frigate punched through a destroyer's shields and lodged in its hull before exploding, gutting the ship from the inside. "Alpha Group is down to 8 ships," said quietly. 8 from 12. In the first 10 minutes, forced herself not to think about the names, the faces of the people who had just died, buying her a few more seconds. "Deploy the drone platforms." Hidden in the debris field around the station, disguised as wreckage, weapons platforms activated. They were crude things, nothing but missile pods and basic targeting systems, but there were dozens of them. They fired in unison, launching a swarm of projectiles at the advancing fleet. The point defense systems lit up, destroying most of the missiles. But not all. 3 ships took direct hits, their shields flaring as they absorbed the impacts. One destroyer, already damaged from the frigate ramming, lost its shields completely and took a missile to its engine section. It went dark, drifting. "We're hurting them," said, surprise evident in his voice. "We're annoying them," corrected. "But annoyed is better than nothing. Park, how are those reactor readings?" "Critical and climbing. They have to be seeing this. We're running hot enough to go supercritical in 30 minutes. Make sure they know it. Broadcast our power readings. Let them think we're desperate enough to turn this whole station into a bomb." The Advance hesitated again. Could imagine Warclaw on his bridge, staring at the readings, trying to decide if these insane humans would really detonate their own reactor. She needed him to believe it, needed him to think they were cornered animals with nothing to lose. "Ma'am, they're changing formation again," said. They're pulling back." "No, they're preparing for a decisive strike. Had studied tactics for 3 days straight. They're going to hit us with everything at once, overwhelming force. They want to end this before we can do anything else crazy." She was right. The fleet consolidated, forming a massive wall of warships. Their weapons began charging, a visible buildup of energy that lit up every sensor on the station. "This is it," whispered. "Stood, launch everything. Every missile, every drone, every piece of improvised ordnance we've rigged. I want a wall of fire between us and them." "Ma'am, if we launch everything now, we won't have anything left for." "There is no later, do it." Station vomited death. Missiles, drones, cargo containers packed with explosives, anything that could fly and explode was thrown at the fleet. The frigates joined in, expending their remaining munitions in one desperate barrage. It was beautiful and terrible, a light show that illuminated the darkness of space. The fired back. The 2 waves of destruction met between the fleets, and space itself seemed to catch fire. Explosions bloomed across the void. Ships on both sides vanished in balls of plasma. The station's shields shattered under the onslaught, and hull breaches began cascading through the outer sections. "We've lost sections A through F. Medical is gone. Engineering too is venting atmosphere. Seal the bulkheads. Everyone fall back to the core." The bridge shook so violently that was thrown from her chair. Sparks erupted from consoles. The lights went out, replaced by emergency reds. "Shields are down. Hull integrity at 60% and falling." Through the viewport, saw 5 of her frigates burning, tumbling through space as their crews died. Only 3 remained functional. The fleet had lost 30 ships, maybe more, but they still had over 150. The mathematics were brutal and unchanging. They were losing. They had always been going to lose, but they had made the bleed, and that was something. "Ma'am, we have a boarding shuttle ready," said. His face was cut, blood running down his cheek. "The one you ordered prepped." Looked at him. Looked at the tactical display showing the flagship, the massive vessel at the center of their formation. Warclaw's ship. An insane idea crystallized in her mind. The kind of idea that only made sense when you were already dying. "How many Marines do we have combat ready?" 32, plus whoever can hold a weapon." "Not enough." Pulled up the shipyard schematics. The flagship was enormous, crew of 2,000 at least. 30 Marines couldn't take it, but maybe they didn't need to take it. Maybe they just needed to reach the bridge. "Get me everyone who can fight. I don't care if they're engineers or cooks. If they can hold a rifle and fit in powered armor, I want them." "Ma'am, what are you?" "We're going to board the flagship." The bridge went silent. "That's suicide," finally said. "Everything we've done today has been suicide." Was already moving toward the door. The difference is, this time we're going to make it count. You have the bridge, keep them busy, keep them focused on the station. Commander, you can't. That's an order, Lieutenant. She paused at the door. And if we're not back in 30 minutes, evacuate whoever's left. Don't wait for us. She didn't wait for his response. She ran through the shattered corridors of her dying station, gathering warriors as she went. The assault shuttle launched from station's one remaining functional bay. Inside, 32 Marines in powered armor stood shoulder to shoulder with engineers and technicians who had volunteered for what everyone knew was a one-way mission. Checked her helmet seals and gripped her plasma rifle. Through the shuttle's small viewport, she could see the flagship growing larger. "They're targeting us," the pilot called back. "Incoming fire 15 seconds. Evasive pattern Delta, use the debris field." The pilot threw the shuttle into a banking dive, weaving between chunks of destroyed ships. Plasma bolts flashed past, close enough that could see them through the viewport. One clipped their port wing and the whole craft shuddered. "We're venting fuel. Not going to make it to their landing bay at this rate." "Then don't aim for the landing bay. Find a hull breach, anything big enough to fit through." The pilot laughed, a slightly manic sound. "You want me to thread a needle through their armor while dodging fire? I want you to get us on that ship, I don't care how." The shuttle spun, rolled, and accelerated. Stomach lurched. Around her, the Marines braced themselves. Through the viewport, she saw it, a gaping wound in the flagship's hull where one of the frigate rams had torn through. The edges were still glowing with residual heat. "Hang on." The shuttle hit the breach at full speed. Metal screamed against metal. They bounced off one wall, then another. Someone was yelling. Couldn't tell if it was the pilot or one of her Marines. Then suddenly they were through, skidding across the interior deck of a corridor. "Everyone out, move, move, move." The rear hatch blew open and the Marines poured out. They were in some kind of cargo bay, dimly lit and filled with strange equipment, and dozens of them scrambling for weapons. "Open fire." The first went down before he could bring his weapon to bear. The second managed one shot that sparked off Marine armor before a plasma bolt took his head off. Then it was chaos, close-quarters combat in a confined space, humans and aliens killing each other with brutal efficiency. Fired, moved, fired again. A soldier twice her size charged at her, and she ducked under his claws, came up inside his guard, and put 3 rounds through his chest. He fell, and she was already moving to the next target. "Secure the corridor. Find me a route to the bridge." Sergeant, her tactical officer who had insisted on coming, was hunched over a portable scanner. "Ma'am, their ship layout doesn't match our database. I can't wait. Elevators that way. If we can access their transit system, it should take us to command levels." "Then that's where we're going. Form up. Combat wedge formation." They moved through the ship like a spear thrust, leaving bodies in their wake. They fought hard, but they had never dealt with humans in powered armor before. The suit's strength, speed, and resilience. More importantly, every human wearing one had volunteered to die today. They fought without hesitation, without retreat. But there were so many. For every one they killed, 2 more appeared. Watched her force dwindle. 32 became 28. 28 became 22. They were bleeding out, dying in a hostile ship light years from home, but they kept pushing forward. Elevator shaft ahead. They piled into the massive industrial lift. It was designed for, so it easily held all 22 remaining humans. Slammed his fist on the controls and they began ascending. "They'll be waiting for us at the top," said, checking her rifle's charge. "The second these doors open, we're going to take fire." "Then we go out shooting," a Marine said. Couldn't see his face through the helmet, but his voice was steady. The elevator rose and rose. The flagship was enormous. Could feel every second ticking away. Back at the station, was probably fighting for his life. They would be finishing what they started. Every moment she delayed here was another person dying back there. The elevator slowed. Weapons ready. The doors opened onto a wall of plasma fire. 3 Marines went down immediately, their armor breached. The rest charged forward into the storm, returning fire. Saw an officer trying to coordinate his troops and shot him. Saw another reaching for an alarm panel and burned him down before he could trigger it. They fought their way down a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. More Marines fell. 15 left. 12. 8. Armor was scorched and dented, warning lights flashing across her HUD. She'd taken hits. She could feel blood running down her side, hot and wet, but she kept moving. There, pointed at massive doors at the end of the corridor. That has to be it. 4 Marines. That's all she had left. 4 Marines and 1 half-dead commander against a flagship's bridge crew. The mathematics were laughable. Pulled every grenade she had left and primed them. The others did the same. On 3, 1, 2, 3. They threw the grenades, then ducked behind a bulkhead. The explosion was deafening even through her helmet. Before the smoke cleared, they were moving, charging through the shattered doors onto the bridge of Warclaw's flagship. The bridge was huge, a cathedral of alien technology. Dozens of officers scrambled for weapons. In the center, rising from a command throne, was himself, massive, armored, and furious. Shot the nearest officer, then another. Her Marines spread out, firing at anything that moved, but there were too many. A plasma bolt caught in the chest, punching through his armor. He went down. Another Marine fell, then another. Was alone. She walked forward, firing until her rifle ran dry. Then she dropped it and drew her plasma blade, a weapon designed for cutting through ship hulls, not combat, but it would do. A soldier rushed her, and she opened him from shoulder to hip. Another tried to grab her from behind, and she spun, the blade taking off his arm. She fought like something possessed, like a demon, like every story humanity had ever told about warriors who refused to die. Around her, bodies piled up. Her armor was failing, segments going red on her HUD. She could taste blood in her mouth. Then she was at the command throne and was in front of her. He held a massive blade of his own, curved and cruel. They stared at each other for a moment, human and alien, commander and Warclaw. He struck first, barely. The force of the blow sent her stumbling back. He was stronger, bigger, faster. She was wounded, exhausted, and alone. This should have ended in seconds. But had spent 3 days planning how to win an unwinnable battle. She wasn't going to lose now to simple physics. She feinted left, then went right. Her blade scored across his armor, drawing a line of blood. He roared and swung again. She ducked under it, came up inside his reach, and drove her blade toward his throat. He caught her wrist. For a moment they struggled face to face. His eyes were copper fire, burning with rage and something else. Respect, maybe. Recognition. Smiled through the pain. Not bad for a human, right? She triggered her armor's emergency release. The chest plate explosive bolts fired, and she used the momentum to throw herself forward, breaking his grip. Her blade came free and swept up in a vicious arc that caught him under the jaw. Warclaw, conqueror of 17 civilizations, staggered backward. Blood ran down his neck, pressed forward, her blade at his throat. The bridge fell silent. Remaining officers watched, weapons trained on. She could see at least 20 of them. Even if she killed their commander, they would kill her instantly. This was the end. She had known it would be. But she had reached him, had put a blade to his throat, had proven that humans could do the impossible. "Surrender," she said quietly. "Order your fleet to stand down." His eyes widened. Around them, his officers made sounds of confusion, could practically read their thoughts. She had won. She held their commander's life in her hands. She should be demanding his death, his humiliation, his total destruction. That's what they would do. That's what everyone in this galaxy did. Instead, lowered her blade slightly and began to speak. "I'm offering you terms," she said. "A ceasefire, your fleet withdraws, you take your wounded and go. In exchange, we treat your injured, return your prisoners, and let you keep your honor. Stared at her. You offer terms, you. Yes, you've lost 30 ships today, maybe more, we're destroyed. But if you keep fighting, you'll lose more, and for what? A mining station that's already half rubble. Could feel her strength fatting. She'd lost too much blood. Her vision was getting blurry, but she kept her voice steady. Or you can end this now. Pull back. Tell your superiors that you encountered an enemy too dangerous to fight, too costly to conquer, that you made a strategic decision to withdraw. They will call it defeat, growled. They'll call it wisdom. Look at what we did here with 12 frigates and a mining station. Imagine what we'll do with a real fleet, with real warships, with time to prepare. Let that sink in. You've conquered 17 civilizations. How many of them cost you 30 ships? How many made you bleed like this? Silence. I'm offering you a way out, a way forward that doesn't end with both our species destroying each other. His legs were shaking now. She was going to collapse soon. Take the deal. Be the commander who was smart enough to recognize when conquest wasn't worth the cost. The commander's eyes searched hers. She wondered what he saw, a human woman, wounded and dying, standing in the wreckage of his bridge surrounded by the bodies of his crew and her own marines, offering peace when she should be taking revenge. Slowly, Warclaw sank to one knee. The bridge erupted in shocked sounds. Around him, officers began to protest, but raised a hand, silencing them. Then his other knee touched the deck. I accept your terms, he said quietly. Your courage honors us both. We will withdraw. Felt her legs give out. She collapsed but managed to keep it controlled, sinking down to sit rather than falling. Good, that's good. The world was getting dark around the edges. She could hear barking orders, his crew scrambling to implement the ceasefire. Could hear someone, probably a medic, approaching her. Commander's voice seemed to come from very far away. Why? Why offer mercy when you had won? Looked up at him through failing vision. Because winning the battle was only half the point. Winning the peace, that's what really matters. Then the darkness took her, and she knew nothing more. She woke 3 days later in a medical bay. Not on station. That was gone, she learned, reduced to debris. Instead, she was on a human hospital ship that had arrived to find a fleet withdrawing and a dozen diplomatic channels opening for the first time in 6 months. The Battle of Station became the foundation of the Galactic Concordat. It took 2 years of negotiations, but eventually the Dominion signed a formal peace treaty with humanity. Other species, seeing that the unstoppable conquerors could be reasoned with, began reaching out. Within a decade, the Concordat included 40 species working together instead of fighting. Was offered medals, promotions, fame. She declined most of it. She had lost 8,000 people winning an unwinnable battle. The weight of those deaths never left her. But when she looked at the Concordat, at the peace that had grown from that desperate fight, she thought maybe it had been worth it. The galaxy learned 3 things that day at Station. First, that humans would fight with insane bravery when cornered. Second, that they could win battles that should have been impossible. Third, and perhaps most important, that they had the courage to offer peace even when vengeance would have been easier. Himself became an ambassador, teaching other commanders about the new reality. He wore the scar on his throat proudly, a reminder of the day he learned that true strength wasn't measured in ships destroyed or worlds conquered, but in the wisdom to choose peace when offered. Years later, at a Concordat ceremony, a young officer asked how she had known would accept the terms, how she had been certain he wouldn't just kill her and keep fighting. Smiled. I wasn't certain, but I figured if humans could do the impossible and win, we could do the impossible and forgive. Someone had to take the first step toward something better than endless war. Might as well be us. That was the story that spread across 100 worlds. The story of Station. The story of how humanity won an unwinnable battle and then won something even more impossible, the peace that followed. And it all started because one commander knew that the hardest victory wasn't against your enemies, but against the desire for revenge that lived in every warrior's heart. They called it the day humanity taught the galaxy a new definition of strength. The day they proved that the courage to extend your hand was greater than the courage to raise your sword. The day they won everything by choosing to forgive.